Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the amazing episode of Success Nonetheless. We have an amazing guest. I've been super stoked to interview her all weekend. I've gotten plenty of audience questions, so we might not get to all of them, but I definitely look forward to getting to most of them. Please welcome Miss Sarah Yudkin. She is the co-founder of You Love and You Learn, and I'm super thrilled to have her. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. So I want to get started. Tell us a bit about yourself, your story. Were you always into, loving yourself, but then also teaching others how to love themselves within, or like how did this journey start?
So, I actually would say that I've always kind of struggled a little bit with loving myself, and that kind of kicked off this journey in a way because I found myself having some self doubt and lack of confidence within my romantic relationship. And I found myself overthinking a lot and just worrying, how do I know that I'm making the right decision? And how can I be sure that this is going to work out? And not only was I doubting myself, but then that kind of got put onto the relationship as well. And I have an amazing husband now. We're married. We've been together almost 10 years, but I felt like I was kind of self sabotaging and not actually letting myself receive love and give love in the ways that I wanted to. And so one day, after a really bad, anxious, spiraling moment where I broke down to him and was questioning, I don't know if I love you the same way anymore. Like I was sobbing, and we had this whole discussion. He was so supportive of me in that moment. And I realized, wait, I don't think this is about him. I think this is my own stuff getting brought into the relationship. And that's when I decided to start learning more about how to love myself better, how to love him better, and relationships really in general.
Wow, I love that. So I want to talk about, you got to forgive me. This like hair is like it's like flop, 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 flop. I was trying to match your vibe today, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a little swoop over. But normally my hair is short, so now I'm just so excited. But anyways, and so is my hair. But but I want to ask you, when it comes to breathing, I want to talk about trauma first. That was one of the things when I went to your website, and I think we don't talk about that enough. How can breathing really help people, I guess, deal with trauma, especially with relationships or new relationships? How can that help?
Yeah. So, really quick backstory, the first 5 years of my business, I actually focused more on just coaching, and it was a lot more mindset work, right? And I found that I was helping people mostly through mindset shifts, changing their beliefs, things like this. But at a certain point in my own journey and in many of my clients' journeys, you can talk about something all day long and you have this breakthrough, you have an insight. And then a couple days later, you're triggered and you're reacting, and it's really hard to comfort and soothe yourself just with the mind in those moments, because your body is having a trauma response or a stress response. So that's why recently, like in the last year, I trained to become a breathwork facilitator, took a year-long certification to really understand how the body is actually involved with healing, because we can't only just think our way through an experience that's stored in the body or that we've suppressed and there's been emotional buildup over time. So I just wanted to add that context, that my breathwork journey has really been more of a recent piece in my business because I knew how much it was needed for so many people.
Wow. So, what's more dangerous? Bad diet, lack of exercise, or spending decades breathing the wrong way?
Mm, ugh. They all have an impact in different ways. I really think about health holistically, and I try not to do things as this or that, like diet or breathing, right? Because it's all connected, and the way that we breathe in daily life can absolutely impact our health and inflammation. The breathing that I most focus on is not technical breathing of how to improve your day to day breathing, but actually doing longer breath work sessions where you do deep breathing to help calm the body and mind, to help process emotions, process stress and tension and inflammation that's built up. So I hope that's not a cop out answer, but really the work that I focus on is kind of seeing someone as a whole and seeing all of their habits and how they stack on top of each other versus zeroing in on just one thing.
Oh, someone just asked me, how did I meet you? Well, I haven't met her. I've met her virtually now, but I guess I was going to touch on that. Someone just asked me. That's amazing. I was going to touch on that. So I actually saw you go to train with Monica Jones. She's a friend of mine. I saw you went to her band. I was supposed to be there, but it's actually on my birthday. So on May 31st, that was my birthday. My husband was celebrating me. So that's the reason why I wasn't there. And I saw your video. And then once I saw your video, this is why I got my little Santorini vibe shirt on. You had good energy, good vibes. That's why I wore this shirt today. But no, I was really taken back on how simplistic, but still intrinsic your values, what you were saying. And like I said, because, everybody's doing breathing exercise. Everybody wants to be whole. And, but for you, I really felt like it was genuine. And then also, because you're not so far away, I said, oh man, she'll be great to have on the show. So even somebody asked me, somebody just said she's coming live. We're going to get to that. They're just rolling in. But yes, I just could connect with you. Like, I didn't feel like it was anything phony or fake. And I feel like we see so much of that, especially on Instagram now. And I was just drawn to your spirit. Like, honestly, that's why I was like, well, let me just send in an invite to see if she's interested. She doesn't know me from a can of paint. I'm not going to let her know how I found her. And then instantly, like I said, it just happened magically. But talk about too, the importance of getting outside. We can't hide behind social media and expect, these connections and things like that to happen, and how important that has been for you with building your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, by the way, for sharing that story. That's really cool to hear. And that event was beautiful, but you got to celebrate your birthday too. Like, you can't always, interrupt your real life to network or to connect with other people. But yeah, getting outside, doing things off the screen is so important to me. Actually, a lot of my business has been mostly virtual, but recently with the breathwork and having an experience that is so profound in person, like guiding a session in person or doing group classes, that type of thing is not as impactful to me, at least, as connecting with a real person and hearing their story. And I went to that event with your friend Monica, and she did a great boxing and flow, but I didn't know anyone there. I just decided to go and kind of learn more about what was going on there. And I ended up connecting with other people. There was some guy that I talked to in line. We did a cold plunge together, and, he wasn't going to do it. And then we did it. And I helped coach him through the breathing during that. And just being around other like-minded people, I think there's this perception sometimes that the world is on fire and there's so much, bad stuff going on. And while I don't want to claim that that's not true in many ways, when you get outside and you're interacting with your neighbor or your community, a lot of times we realize, oh, like, these people are genuinely good-hearted people and we want the best for each other. But it can be so easy to get swept up in this narrative that everything is horrible. And so that's why I like to get outside, connect with people, and just try to see other ways that I can serve and support the community.
Now, I'm trying to get better at this, Sarah. So how important it is to, I guess, the first breath we take in the morning, like how important that is, like when we start our day. Can you talk about that piece?
Yeah. For me, my morning breathwork practice, whatever type of breathing I'm doing, and I can share more about the different types throughout this conversation, but regardless of whether I'm doing slow breathing to help calm my system down, or whether I'm doing more energizing breathing to give me a boost of energy or gratitude, that part to me doesn't matter so much. But what does matter is, instead of going for my phone or instead of being reactive to something and like jumping on my computer, seeing what emails happened overnight, instead of doing something that's going to make me more reactive, I like to show up proactively. And that's why I have a morning breathwork practice pretty much every day. I try not to miss it because it helps just give me a little bit more of a blank slate, versus sometimes if I'm just laying in bed and reacting to the things around me, then my brain's already going a million miles a minute of what do I need to do today? Who do I need to get back to? And I find that it sets the tone for how I want to show up better.
So what do people unknowingly do in their first 10 minutes of the day? And can you coincide that to, I guess, some of your breathing techniques?
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, one thing that gets me at least feeling behind for the day is when I jump straight into thinking about all the things I need to do, or I jump straight into doing, because then it's very like you're kind of already getting this boost of feeling like you're behind and have to do more. And so if I'm in that mode, then I do calming breaths. So some of my favorite calming breaths are really simple and easy, like taking deep inhales through the nose, soft sighs, and seeing if you can extend the exhale for a couple seconds longer. If we do extended exhale breathing and it's like the inhale is like a belly expanding, like a balloon filling with air. And then the exhale, it's like the balloon flattening. If you just do nice, slow, deep breaths like that, it's called coherent breathing, where it's like 5 to 6 second inhale, 5 to 6 second exhales, and you really focus just on the breath. Like when your mind wanders, you bring it right back to the breath. That's going to quiet some of that inner chatter that a lot of us tend to wake up with and help you start the day with a little bit more space. So that's kind of the first type of breathing that I like doing in the morning.
Wow, yeah, because I'm definitely a thinker and a doer. And immediately, like you said, I'm like, okay, what do I have to do today? And what didn't I get done yesterday? And immediately, we reach for our phones. So I'm trying to get better at that, but it's definitely a process. Okay. Can poor breathing habits be one of the hidden signs of insomnia?
Mm. So I want to clarify just that I'm not necessarily an expert on like certain um, breathing patterns in day to day life per se. Like I give people tools for showing up on the spot, but I'm not necessarily trained in like insomnia. That's more of like a medical experience. So I don't know if I want to answer that because I don't want to
Okay.
misspeak.
Yeah. I'm reading the questions that we were.
I love it.
Oh, this is a good one. Can breath work help someone who's always in survival mode?
Mm, absolutely. The answer is yes, and so yes, it can. And I also think it depends on the level of survival mode that you're at. Like, if you haven't also explored a form of talk therapy and you're like really, really in survival mode, and there's a lot of past layers of trauma that you haven't yet explored with some sort of practitioner, then I might not recommend breath work as like the first thing that you do to try to work on that. But absolutely, especially the more calming breathing techniques for someone who's chronically in survival mode, breathwork is a really great tool in your tool belt, and starting slow with it, right? Because let's say you have a lot of past traumatic experiences. You don't want to go deep into very active breathing and reliving all of that. That might not feel safe for your nervous system. So, making sure that you have someone that can kind of take you step by step versus jumping into the deep end.
So, do successful people breathe differently than people who are living under constant stress?
So, what I've found and what I learned in my training through breathwork is that a lot of us are breathing very shallowly through, like, it's like up in our chest. Whereas when someone is more grounded and regulated, you're taking deeper breaths down into your lungs and diaphragm, which is actually kind of more down by the belly. So if your breath is really shallow and quick, then that might be a sign that your system feels like it's kind of in chronic stress mode, or that you're feeling in fight or flight mode, or like some sort of stress or tension. Whereas when you're taking nice, slow, deep belly breaths in the diaphragm, then that usually sends a signal to your nervous system that you can be in a more safe, grounded space. So that's why it's really nice to actually start tracking your breath a little bit, not religiously. You don't have to be super strict about it, but if you just pause a couple times throughout the day and just check, where is the breath flowing in my body right now? Is it up in my chest? Or do I feel like I'm taking nice, slow, long, deep breaths to my belly? That kind of gives you a cue of how your body and mind are feeling.
Now, let's talk about anger.
Mm.
Now, what's the breath work for anger? I mean, when somebody, really ticks you off, like how do you, of course, myself, right? I gotta stop, but learning how to incorporate my breathing with that, not just, okay, I don't want to go to this next level, but how breath work can help with that.
Yeah, so I just want to name the fact that, so a lot of times if we're in anger, we're kind of in that fight mode, right? So most of the people listening might have heard of like fight or flight, or freeze. Those are kind of these automatic responses that our body goes into when we're feeling triggered or stressed. And so the fight mode is kind of like the name. It's like you want to fight back, and that's when you have that anger. And I just want to name that it's really hard sometimes to catch yourself when you're in that mode because your body is being flooded with stress hormones. And it's usually happening in a very quick reactive way, and it's not always fully in our control. But as soon as you are able to, and you're catching yourself in that mode, taking those slow, deep belly breaths is one of the best ways to calm down your heart rate and send the signal that you're actually safe in that moment. So, taking those nice, slow, deep inhales, like we can take a few together right now if you want to have
Okay.
people hear and see what that would look
Okay.
like. So,
Sure.
do you want to keep your eyes open or do you want to close down your eyes? Which one would feel more comfortable?
I'm like a little kid, Sarah. Like when I'm in public, say I'm always like this, like who's
Okay,
watching?
cool.
But now I'm secure, so I'm gonna do this. Okay.
Okay, cool. So, Kat, go ahead and close your eyes down just for a moment. And start by very quickly, before we even get into these slow, deep breaths, just to track your daily breath right now. So notice the air flowing in and out of your nose. And just become aware that you're even breathing right now. So often we're not even aware that we're actually breathing. So, really just noticing where your breath is flowing right now. And then on your next inhale, start to deepen, blowing the air deeply in through the nose. Nice, long, extended sigh. Let's do 2 more of those, seeing if you can feel the belly expand on that inhale. And fall on that exhale. Last one, most intentional breath yet. And exhale. Then blinking your eyes back open whenever you're ready, and just noticing if you feel any shifts.
Open, but not open. I'm like, okay, she's gonna tell me to open my eyes, or I'm gonna open my eyes. Okay.
Yeah, and that was
Like, what
only.
about the shoulder? I was gonna ask you, like, is the shoulders the indication that you're taking those, those deep breaths too? Like, is that important to know as your belly is expanding?
So when we do more like active energizing breath, and I can demonstrate that if you would like, but that's more of like a
Sure.
full body. You kind of pull up into the shoulders and
Uh-huh.
chest. So that might look or sound like this. So this is like a really active breath that can kind of get you pumped up and energized. And you wouldn't do just 3 of them. You would do it for like a few minutes at a time. But when you're doing slow, deep breaths, you really don't need to move your shoulders. It's just about like expanding the belly. And it kind of takes some practice because I think a lot of us are
Mm,
used to pulling it up
yeah.
into the chest in order for it to feel powerful.
Okay. Okay. Now, what about my question to you? Have you ever been to a Tony Robbins event?
I've been to a virtual event of his. I wanted to do it in person, but it was during 2020, so he was only doing virtual that year.
Oh my gosh. So I was going to ask you, I've seen him in person, Sarah, out of this world. I'm like, you see these motivational speakers, and you're like, oh, okay, it's going to be nice. When I tell you how energetic and he's like this, he is like that in person on 1,000. So what have you seen as far as those high level productive people, high energy? What breathing, I guess, what are some of the breathing, I guess, mastery have you seen for them to, I guess, not show nervousness too? Because I mean, I'm like, you got to be nervous, but this guy comes in so confident, the energy is high, and then he just elevates the audience. Like, what type of breathing would someone have to do to even get there?
Yeah, I love Tony. I actually just wrote like a Substack article today. I don't know if you've heard him talk about his emotional triad, but there's like these three pillars and he like draws it out in a triangle. The first is your physiology, so your physical state, which it would be about your breath, your posture, your routine before going out on stage. But then he also talks about what are you focusing on and what are you making it mean? So yes, I think some of what he does, like pumping up, is active breathing. And I know he also talks about like he has a specific way he moves his body, like he hits his chest or like he like gets in a full mode. But then I also know that a lot of what he does is combine that with the mental. Like he's focused on how can I help people? How can I keep up the energy? And what he's making it mean is I'm going to make a difference and I'm going to change people's lives. Like there would be a world where someone else is getting on stage and their focus is like, well, what if I mess up? Or what if this goes badly? And it would mean that I'm not good enough. And they're letting that win. Whereas I think he combines the physical and the mental to really bring that A game. And I would love to see him live in person because I know he is just, yeah, he's awesome.
It's worth every penny.
Mm-hmm. When did you see him?
Oh my gosh, this was 30, how old am I? I'm 36. I saw him when I was 20. So 16 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a minute. I'm overdue, but it was well worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, let's talk about the journey. Were your friends supportive of your business at first and family? I'm always intrigued by people's answer. Like, were they on board, or was it a thing that you have to show them your success and then they were like, I'm behind you, Sarah? Like, how was that?
Yeah, luckily my friends have been supportive. And I think, it's hard when someone doesn't fully understand your world in certain ways. Like, for example, if I have another friend who I've met on Instagram and I follow them, like I will like and comment almost on every post. And like, I feel like I understand what it is to be in that space and how much like little things mean, or like trying to show up for people's events, things like that. And my friends have always supported so much, but I think sometimes they just don't know like certain things of like commenting on a post, like how much that actually helps. And like they might need a little boost of like, hey, this is actually really helpful for me if you like hype it up when it comes out, because I just think like you don't know until you're in that situation how much the little things can make a big difference. So, but luckily, yes, I have really, really great people surrounding me. One thing that is funny though is like sometimes I'll meet people and I tell them about my page and what I'm doing, and then if they don't know me well, they'll be like, oh, what does like your husband think about you sharing that online? Because I would share a lot of like our relationship stuff along the way. And so there were definitely people that I could tell what they were thinking about it by the questions they would ask, like, oh, like I'm surprised he like is so cool with you sharing that stuff openly. And I was like, well, he doesn't care, but it sounds like you would, So
For sure. Yeah, it's always, I think it still comes back to intention. Like, what is the intention behind the content and what you're putting out to the world, right? It always comes back to that. Is it just to get clout? Is it to get hype, to get views? Or are you genuinely trying to help people? Then by default, you're going to win. So I always try to, come back to that. And again, if you're comfortable, he's comfortable,
Yep.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
What's one breathwork myth that you wish would disappear forever?
Ooh, good question. Let me think about that. I think a myth that I went into my year-long training with, and I think sometimes it's easy to maybe see someone else doing breath work and they have this like big insight or a big emotional release after their session. And so you think every session has to have some bigger purpose. Like I have to have this big breakthrough, or I have to leave like feeling like I released my trauma. There can be this pressure that every session has to go a certain way. But actually sometimes all you're doing is showing up and breathing, and that's enough for the day. And like it's kind of like going to the gym. Not every workout is going to be the best, but you're building those reps. So I would say, the expectation that it has to get you somewhere is one of the myths that I had to unlearn.
So can you talk about what happens, I guess, in the brain during the first few seconds that someone actually, takes that deep breath and those different breathing techniques? Like, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I can't say for sure if it's the first few seconds. So I want to
Okay.
mention that. But when you're doing consistent breath work, then the default mode network in your brain tends to quiet. And the default mode network in your brain is the part that gets stuck in rumination and overthinking and is really focused on the self. So you kind of mentioned like earlier, if someone's doing something for clout or they're trying to get something, it's like that's the part of your brain that's like, it's almost like the ego. It's like focused on how can I, fix this, or how can I be better? And it's almost too focused on the self. So when
Mm.
that default mode network quiets through the consistent breathing, then there's more space that opens up in the mind. And I don't know if you've ever meditated before, but like when you kind of think of meditation, it's like there's this ocean moving and there's a lot of waves, and then underneath those waves, when you sit long enough, there's like a stillness. And that can happen during breath work. Once you breathe consistently and rhythmically for long enough, it feels like you're no longer getting bombarded with certain thoughts, and there's just a spaciousness that opens up.
I've tried. My brain is literally so busy, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, because
I
we
hear
actually
you.
we took a trip to Sedona like 2 years ago. My husband and our friends, and it was the most clear I've ever been. And so I think I'm not gonna lie, I think maybe 20 seconds that I was actually still in my brain, and I was just told, hey, you gotta grow from that. So can you talk about somebody who's just starting out, that it might not be easy to jump? I know for me, it's hard to not think about anything for like, especially a couple seconds, but you talking about a minute and 5 minutes and 9 minutes. Can you walk us through like I guess the expectations, and that is a journey and a process. It's not an overnight thing.
Absolutely. And I've recently supported some people who have ADHD and they wanted to try breath work. And, the brain, especially for them showing up, they're like, I never stop thinking and there's always something. I think for me, the reason I like breath work, not necessarily better than meditation, but like for me, it resonates more is because you can always bring yourself back to the one next breath. So, like, you might take a breath and then you think of something later on your to-do list. And then you're like, all right, crap, I got to bring myself back to that next inhale. And then even when you're taking the next inhale, you're like, oh, but I'm not doing this right. And then it's like, okay, well, then let's just bring it back to the one next inhale, one next exhale. And it almost gives you something to anchor into. Whereas with meditation, for me, it kind of feels almost like too much of a blank canvas. There's too much to actually like sift through. So, but definitely you're right that it does take practice. And again, I'll use that gym metaphor. Like if you go to the gym for the first time, you're not going to build your muscles right away. But just like anything, breath work or learning to breathe or learning to bring your focus back to your breath when it wanders, that is a muscle and it just takes consistency and repetition.
Okay. Someone just said, hi, Sarah. My name is Lisa from Texas. I've struggled with my weight for years, and whenever I'm stressed, I find myself reaching for food. Is there a connection between stress, breathing, and emotional eating? And so it's two questions. And if I need to read them again, that's fine. And can breath work actually help someone gain more control over those cravings?
Hmm. Well, thank you for that beautiful question. So, the emotional eating to me is likely coming from a place where there's a stress response happening and there's some form of discomfort in the mind or the body. And then food becomes that source of comfort, right? So whether that's scrolling on, social media or eating or drinking or whatever it is, we all have a vice that we kind of go to. And for some people, it's food. So I just want to offer compassion to that. And there's probably some connection to a stress response like, you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or whatever it is. And that's the coping mechanism that feels the most familiar or safe. So that's kind of the first part of it. Now, how breath and breath work can support with that. If you practice noticing discomfort in your body, like let's say that there's a pattern, you have a hard day at work and then you feel really uncomfortable. And then your first inkling is like, I want to go home and eat. There's an opportunity to slowly over time begin to notice like, oh, my body's feeling really tight, or I'm having these uncomfortable sensations, like my throat feels heavy and my stomach feels like it's like there's all these butterflies in it. Okay, let me try to slow my breathing down and feel a little bit more safe and grounded in the present moment. And if you can give yourself even a little bit more chance to return to the present moment, you might be able to pause and think, do I actually need to eat more tonight in order to feel better? Or is there something else that I could do to help me? So that's one way that the breath could potentially support. But the second is if you do longer, more consistent breath work journeys, like I'm talking breathing for 30, 40 minutes in a row, you can get into this deeper state where you turn off some of the overthinking brain, and then there gives more space for like subconscious memories and limiting beliefs and things to become more clear. So let's say you learned when you were really young from your parents that eating was a way to solve discomfort. Then you might have a memory like that pops up and you're like, oh, I realized like the younger version of me just thought that was what was normal. Or I realized that there's actually a lot of shame that I have about myself. I don't feel good enough. I feel unworthy. And through doing these longer breathwork sessions, you have just a little bit of a chance to explore some of that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Can mastering your breath help you become a better leader?
I would say so, absolutely. I mean, kind of like that anger question that we talked about earlier. If you're a leader and there's a lot of pressure building up, whether it's at work or you're leading your family, or leading an organization, volunteering, whatever it is, if you can learn how to feel more comfortable with your emotions and regulate, then you can show up better for the people around you. But I will just say that breathwork isn't like a magic cure all. And this isn't like a quick hack, where it's like you'll never feel angry again or you'll never have a hard time. We're all human, and there's going to be an ebb and a flow of days where you feel more connected to your breath. Other days it all goes out the window and you're like, dang it, I wish I had learned or I wish I had like practiced my breath work today, So I don't want to come across as like, this is the magic pill that like will make you somehow not have human emotions, but absolutely it's a tool in the tool belt.
Okay, I want to touch on, I know they're little I guess which one should I do? I'm gonna choose two. There's a couple of them that I like, the different posts that you've done. You did one about reasons you close your heart and how to open it. I really like that one. So do you remember that post that you had done?
I remember like posting it, but I want to say this feels like it was one of the like not recent posts though, because I kind of been pivoting a little bit away from relationship stuff. So can you jog my memory if you remember some of what I shared?
So I just took a screenshot of it because I was doing it different ones. But I guess the reason why people close their heart and how can they become open again, and that doesn't, I don't think we don't have to stay in the whole relationship lane, but it could be a dream. It could be trying something new. Like, can you kind of expand upon that? Like how someone can find that again, through breath work. And like you said, going to those deeper levels of consciousness and things like that.
Yeah. So if I remember anything, my sentiments of what I share, it's all very similar. And I imagine that I would have said something along the lines of we close our heart because of fear. A lot of times, like the reason that we shut down and withdraw is because something feels too big or too much. And so we try to protect ourselves, right? We don't want to be hurt, or we don't want someone to take something away from us. So that's a lot of reasons why we end up closing our heart. And a lot of times we don't even want to be doing that, right? Like when I was overthinking in my relationship, I wanted more than anything to just feel connected to my partner, but I would just get in my head and then I would end up withdrawing. So a lot of it is just happening subconsciously, but ways to open our heart and just feel more safe. A lot of it starts with us and coming back into the present moment, coming back into our body and trusting that even if things are uncomfortable, we're able to handle that and we're able to let our emotions pass through, or we're able to return to here and now. Because a lot of times, if we close our heart, it might be because we're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, worried about something that could go wrong. So, to me, how I try to stay open hearted as best as possible is come back into my body, into the present moment, turn off a lot of the overthinking and the ego and the judgments of myself and others, and just come back to like what is true in this moment and how can I be more compassionate and give myself and other people more grace.
Okay. So I'm gonna be honest with you. Some people think breath work is a wellness trend. So what about that do people, I guess, kind of not understand when it comes to breath work?
Yeah. So I was doing a post actually a few months ago about like the science and the woo woo behind breath work. And there was an interesting article, and I might misquote it, but if you would like, I can send you the link later and we can put it in the show notes. But I think there was an anthropologic, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, like an anthropologic study of looking at just like the history of humans, and almost 90% of cultures have had some form of ritual where they are going into a non-ordinary state of consciousness, like throughout history. So this isn't just a practice that's being used now. There are a lot of rituals around the breath and around movement, and going into a non-ordinary state of consciousness, whether it's through like plant medicine or other things, to open up your consciousness and like see things in a different way. So it doesn't have to only be through the breath, it can be through other mediums, but exploring consciousness, exploring the depths of our mind, that's definitely not new. It's very ancient. And the ways we get there definitely will kind of ebb and flow. But to me, our breath is how we stay alive, right? It's always with us. It's that part isn't new, but how people choose to practice breathing intentionally, like that will probably always come and go. And I can't predict like where breath work will be in the future.
Right. Is it possible to do too much breath work?
So how I would define too much breath work is if you're doing it past your window of tolerance. So like the example I gave earlier, if you have a lot of trauma and you're diving straight into active breathing, like that feels like too much breath work. But like too much of a daily 5-minute breath work practice, I haven't yet experienced that being too much. Like it's just kind of a nice little clearing of my energy each morning. But like I wouldn't necessarily do an hour of breath work every day. I don't think you need to do that. Just like you don't have to be working out at high intensity every single day. You can mix up what you do. You can go for some walks sometimes or do Pilates and sometimes do strength training. Like you kind of want to create a routine that feels like it's manageable versus forcing yourself.
Okay. So what do your clients love most about you?
Ooh, good question.
Besides your voice, you do have a soothing voice. I'm not gonna lie, Sarah, because I was there. Sometimes some people sound too manly or too harsh, and you're like, I'm opening my eyes, like I can't even get in a relaxed state. But your voice was so calming and like soothing. That I'm not a client, you guys. I'm just saying from my own little a minute that we had, I could definitely I felt it, right, even as we're over the computer. But what did your clients say about you?
Yeah, well, thank you for that, by the way. But what I've heard most throughout the last 6 years of my business is that I'm opening a safe space for people. And I know that phrase kind of gets tossed around a lot. Like, are you a safe space? But like, I really feel like I'm meeting people where they're at. And if you're having a really anxious day, like it's okay to bring that to session. If you're having, a thought that you're like, no one else must think this, and then you share it with me, like I'm going to say that's okay. Like it's okay to have that thought. So I'm really compassionate and empathetic to what people are navigating. And my big thing is like, you don't have to fix yourself or heal yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just navigating the human experience. So I would say that's one of the most consistent pieces of feedback, is that people came to me and they were like, wow, okay, I thought something was wrong with me, but I realized that like I'm just a normal person.
Now, this is one that I know is very tough. Even myself, grief is something that everybody has to deal with, and I'm still going through my grieving as well. So, what are some breathing techniques that people can use when dealing with, grief or like a really high emotional, like I said, state that they're in that they weren't expecting?
Oh, yeah. It's such a heavy experience. And, you know, instead of giving like a specific breathing technique, I want to kind of share a little bit about what that process could look like navigating grief. And it can be a couple different things, right? It might be on the spot where like you feel a wave of grief coming on. And I think that's where you try to do the more calming breaths, right? So those belly breaths, the extended exhales, nice and slow. And I think this is also somewhat mental, like letting yourself feel it, right? Sometimes we feel a cry coming on and we're like, oh, I can't cry right now, or this is too much. And we end up stuffing it down. But when you open up and actually let yourself feel the feeling, notice the sensations in the body, like whether, again, that could be like a tightness in your chest or maybe your throat, like there's something you notice physically, letting that pass through. But then in the bigger picture, if you want to work with grief, doing those longer sessions, and those longer sessions are a mix of slow breathing and more active breathing, which is like getting the full body moving. That's a really powerful opportunity to process grief as well, is through more active breathing, because it gives you the room to actually let the tears flow in a session. And yes, the calming breathing is great, but the calming breathing isn't actually like moving stuff around in the body. Whereas when you do that more active breathing, it can kind of wake up those emotions that we've stuffed down. And the more that you breathe more actively, it gives like the different energy. I don't know if you believe in like chakras and stuff like that, but I've learned a little bit
My
about
husband
that.
does.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. He does all of.
Yep, like the
Right.
meridians and all of that. I know a lot of that is like ancient wisdom as well. I'm still learning myself, but there's different parts of your body, like the lungs or the throat, that can like hold on to different stored emotions, the heart space. And so the more active breathing helps those open up a bit. But if you were like, let's say at the grocery store feeling a moment of grief coming on, I wouldn't like stop right then and do the active breathing. That's when I would try to just like put a hand on the heart, take nice, slow, deep breaths, and give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling.
And then I have another one. What about someone who I guess may feel tired despite getting enough sleep?
Mm. Yeah, so that one to me probably feels more holistic as well. Like I don't think just active breathing is going to be the one thing. But if you were going to try to give yourself a boost of energy, you can use active, more energizing breath. But a lot of times trying to push, push, push and do more, like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but you're so tired and then you have a lot of caffeine and then you have this crash at the end of the day, when actually what could have been more restorative for your body is just like taking a nap or doing like a nice slow set of breaths. So I think sometimes when we need more energy, we think we always have to ramp up, but a lot of times actually it can be really nice to like give yourself a little rest.
Okay. So let's talk about, do you have any upcoming events or things that people should look out for?
Yeah, so there's the series of events that I have coming up are still kind of not being announced yet, but in the summertime, out in Reston, I do have this 3-part series coming with RTR Pilates, where there will
Ooh.
be a free mat Pilates class followed by breathwork. on my end. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And I was going to share just like if there's other events coming up, I will plan to share them on my Instagram page. So staying connected over there is probably the best place. At You Love and You Learn on Instagram is where I'll probably post most of my upcoming events.
Okay. Well, no, this is amazing. My first breathwork expert. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better, you guys. We're all going to get better together. But no, this has been tremendous value add on this lovely Monday. And, I look forward to meeting you one day in person. But no,
Yes.
I truly thank you for your time. Again, you're special. You have a bright light, Sarah, and I had to shine the light on you today and share you with everybody to see the amazingness that I saw just from a couple of scrolls and videos. But no, you're amazing. What you're doing is amazing. I look forward to supporting you at your events as well, so I can show people, what they're missing and what they need to continue to support and come out to. But I'm super excited. And again, I learned so much in just a short amount of time that we've been together virtually. And again, thank you for your time, because it's one thing that we can never get back.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kat. I'd love to do a session for you, so we'll have to talk offline about that.
Sure. Well, thank you again, you guys. Make sure you guys go to You Love and You Learn. Can you give them the website and then, of course, your IG?
Yeah, it's youloveandyoulearn.com is my website, and then Instagram is just at youloveandyoulearn.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll check it out. And thank you again for your time. See you all later.
Thank you.